Hey, it's Juck.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome to Juck on Bucks. Appreciate y'all so much for joining me live on a Juck Primetime on a Monday night. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I went to a graduation party. I want to say congratulations to my niece, Savannah. But we got to get right into it, guys. A big show, a lot to get to. Don't even know if we're going to fit it all in today. We might need to carry some over onto our next show. But as I got the show notes complete this morning, a absolute bombshell story dropped. Big Ten Media Days, as we know, starting in Las Vegas this week. Tomorrow. Like, they're ready to roll. They're setting up stuff right now. It was already way more interesting than usual. Now it's going to be straight up wild because on Monday, somebody leaked a story to ESPN's Dan Wetzel that Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, what he had said to the NCAA about Michigan's penalty and what it should be for the advanced scouting scandal. And I got to tell you, man, we got a lot to talk about here with this guy, but they leaked it right before Big Ten Media Days, specifically so Tony couldn't get out of answering it. And Tony did not want to answer it because he was asked to comment on it, and he said no. And the fact that he refused to comment on it means he needs some time to think about it. He wasn't expecting it. And that's fantastic. I can't wait to see what happens tomorrow. I'd love to ask quite a few questions of Tony Petitti. There's huge issues right now in college football that are affecting all of college football, but Ohio State specifically, including the implementation of the House settlement, which thus far has been very clunky, seemingly unfair. There are without a doubt some Big Ten schools who certainly don't seem like they're following the settlement. I'd like to hear what Tony Petitti has to say about that. Of course, we got the playoff debate, and we've heard what the SEC had to say and what Sankey had to say last week. Time to hear what the Big Ten has to say. Time for Tony to come out of the closet. Greg Sankey, I feel like we've heard him and the SEC for a month straight. Haven't heard anything out of the Big Ten, really. And I kind of feel like the SEC right now is in a win-win situation, no matter which direction they go. But Tony Petitti, not the only one answering questions. Tomorrow, we have the following lineup at 2:30. Again, this is out in Las Vegas, so these are Eastern time. So 2:30 Eastern, we start off with Brett Bielema. He will come on stage right after Tony Petitti. He's bringing Luke Altmaier with him, and that's one of the only brand name players that's going to be there tomorrow. Greg Schiano will be on next at 2:45. Kurt Cignetti in Indiana. Cignetti is Italian for soft. Mike Loxley at 3:15, somehow still the coach of Maryland. Nebraska and Matt Rule at 3:30. Dylan Raiola will be with Matt Rule. So Luke Altmaier, Matt Rule, and closing out the show at 3:45, the consensus number 2 head coach in the country, reigning national champion, Ryan Patrick Day, with 3 superstars from Ohio State in Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, and Sonny Styles. And these Buckeyes going to get bombarded because outside of Dylan Raiola, there are no other big names. So it's going to be a madhouse. Also tonight, there's a narrative making the rounds that Ryan Day, Ross Bjork at odds with each other over some money, spending, the House settlement, and how it's affected Ohio State spending on freshmen specifically. I got some thoughts on that. But we did get quite a treat over the weekend as both Mark Pantoni and Ross Bjork did short interviews, and I watched both of their interviews. I want to hit on a couple of things they said and relay some of that if you guys hadn't seen them, as well as a few of your comments. As always, at the end of the show, I'll hop in the chat. So if you got any questions or something you want to bring up on the show, wait till the end, and I will absolutely pop that up, and we will go through what you guys got to say. Of course, you can get your super chats in. Please like and subscribe to the show. But we'll start with Tony, as somebody dropped a dime on Tony Petitti. Somebody absolutely wanted to have him answer some rough questions. And we'll just take it back to 2023 when the initial sign stealing Connor Salian's news just first dropped. There were a lot of Big Ten coaches, athletic directors, that were on a conference call with Tony Petitti, and they were just scathing mad and urging him to do something. They're in the middle of the season, and they believe that Michigan has an unfair advantage currently as they're playing during the season. You've got a couple of coaches who noticed some fishy business like Greg Schiano, like James Franklin, and they want something done right now. And the NCAA could not do anything about it. They take forever, as we know. Tony Petitti in the Big Ten could do something about it. So they pushed and they pushed for Tony to do something, and eventually he did. The Big Ten suspended Jim Harbaugh. Final 3 games of the 2023 season. That was his second suspension of the year. The first one was for the COVID recruiting violations, or Burgergate. Look at that. I got balloons. How about that? So he gets the suspension. Upon Michigan receiving the news of the suspension, they threaten legal action, say they're going to get an injunction. Then they saw the evidence and they piped down and decided not to fight. Their fan bases said that they were going to leave the Big Ten. That was pretty funny, but it was all a big to-do about nothing. I thought it was a pretty toothless penalty, to be honest, as he could coach during the week, just couldn't be there on game day. And Michigan claimed that the Big Ten's actions were fraudulent, unlawful, unethical, unjustified, and were done with malice. So it seemed like the relationship between that school and Tony Petitti was not so good. Now, Michigan charged with 11 rule violations, 6 of them level 1. That's top of the board there. And they had their big hearing just this last month in June. Tony Petitti wanted to be there, but he had hip replacement. So he sent a letter instead. Now, it's proper of him to be there. He's the commissioner, and any AD would be there in this scenario. Most athletic directors in this situation are always going to back their program, especially one of the premier institutions in their conference, and Michigan certainly is that. But this one feels a little different than Jim Delaney backing Jim Tressel over Tattoo Gate. Ohio State was not actively cheating on the field when players gave away their cleats for tattoos. The cheating is what enraged all of the other schools in the Big Ten. And Petitti's argument to the NCAA in this letter that he sent is that Michigan has already received sufficient punishment. That's it. That's all he wants. Of course, this is totally silly, as Petitti hasn't seen all the evidence. He hasn't seen everything the NCAA has collected. Again, he wasn't even at the trial. He just sent a letter saying Jim Harbaugh being suspended for 3 games was enough. Now, I certainly did not expect to hear this from Tony Petitti. It feels like he's compromised, but I don't think the NCAA cares one way or the other what Tony Petitti has to say. Like I said, they know he's compromised too. Maybe feels like he has to say this, as Michigan is one of the programs that he works for. Like, they are his employer after all. But so is every other school. Based on the fact that he hasn't seen all the evidence and wasn't at the trial, like, I don't think his words sway anybody in the NCAA one way or the other. He knows that, and that's why I feel like it's such a weird thing for him to do. So I've been here all morning just thinking, like, hearing people talk about, okay, Michigan must have leaked this, because Michigan has been leaking things throughout this whole thing. I don't think Michigan leaked this at all. I think another Big Ten leaked this. I think they sat on this, they had it, and they leaked it right before Big Ten media days so that Tony would have to answer it with no prep. Like this, literally the day before. This sounds like somebody was mad. They intentionally wanted to get him put on the hot seat, which is absolutely what he deserves. I think it's a really poor strategic move on his part. While I understand that he doesn't want one of the premier programs getting a postseason ban, he doesn't want them taking a massive hit financially, taking a massive hit in recruiting. He doesn't want the program to go backwards. I get it. It's one of the schools in the Big Ten. The potential punishments include things like vacating games. He's not going to care about that, but a postseason ban, he certainly will. Coaches getting a show cause, he'll certainly care about that. Recruiting violations can set a program back. There's a wealth of different ways they can be penalized here. There's a lot on the table. But the guy in charge of the conference, in charge of representing all 18 teams in the conference, for him to say that he thinks those 3 games that weren't even full weeks, just the actual game for Jim Harbaugh was plenty. That's it. I'd love to hear what Greg Schiano, James Franklin, Ryan Day, what do they all think about this? I hope somebody asks them. But I guess the question is, does anybody outside of Ann Arbor actually believe that a 3-game suspension which literally was just the game, not a 3-week, just the game, was sufficient for that entire thing in a year and a half of investigations. A public relations nightmare for Tony Petitti. I think this is really bad for him. This is the guy they chose to lead the conference. Meanwhile, remember, this playoff debate's been going on for how long? And this guy is literally, I had to pull this up. This guy, he hasn't said a word, man. You got the SEC out here pounding their chest with their propaganda and talking about their 8th game and their 8th season conference game season is harder than the Big Ten's 9. Petitti's not saying anything. He's hiding in the closet. Now we finally get to hear him talk tomorrow. I've given this guy time. I think he sucks. I really do. I think he just sucks at this point, but I can't wait to see what he has to say tomorrow. Anyway, Dan says, Juck, I'll come out of retirement when the hammer gets dropped so we can gloat together. That's my buddy Dan, and I am holding him to that. I cannot wait to see if he's right. He has been OG with the hammer all along. Chris with the super chat. Thank you so much, my buddy Chris Lane. Just because, go Bucks. Appreciate you, buddy. So I am so excited for this, guys. Really excited to see what happens tomorrow. Troy says, 3 days off for turning the entire college football world upside down. Sounds a little light. That's a good way to put it. We also, of course, got Ryan Day at Big Ten Media Days. Now, last year, Ryan Day was a different dude at Big Ten Media Days than he had been previously. Ryan Day was walking through there with a different aura about him. He looked like the Nick Saban of the Big Ten. He looked like the top dog, a different confidence. It was just different. I did a members only show the other day. Turns out it wasn't actually a members only show, so maybe you saw it. I said some things in that members only show that I normally would only say to the members. But one thing I did talk about in that show was I went down a list of softball questions that I anticipate Ryan Day being asked at Big Ten Media Days. And there's a lot of things on Buckeye fans' minds, a lot of things that Ohio State fans would like to hear Ryan Day comment on. And from my conversations with fellow Buckeye fans here in particular, I think that most of the 0.002%, that's you folks who watch Ohio State shows in the off season, would like to hear Ryan Day's opinion on quite a few things all around college football. But it's not just us. The rest of college football also wants to hear Ryan Day's opinion on things going on in college football, just like people want to hear Kirby Smart's opinion on the broader things going on in college football. And there aren't many opportunities throughout the calendar year where you get a chance to ask Ryan Day questions when it's not surrounding something like a game or signing day, something that just happened that you have to talk about that, the issue at hand. Not many opportunities where it's just ask him whatever you want because there's no specific topic that needs addressed. Now, we've already heard him talk all preseason about the veteran guys wanting to take down the championship signs. I hope we don't hear that again. The book that he wants him to read, his leadership concern, maybe being the biggest concern is leadership, concerned about the interior depth on the defensive line, doesn't want to have the quarterback competition go into the season, made a mistake with that, extremely confident with all of his coaches, and they have approached the offseason differently this year because they have such a huge game in that Texas game to kick it off. We've covered all the bases. We have not got to hear Ryan Day talk at a press conference about the playoff, about scheduling, about the settlement in recruiting, about roster construction, about the transfer portal. And that's some of the stuff I want to hear Ryan Day talk about, which applies to both Ohio State and college football at broad. So I've got a list of questions here that I want to ask to Ryan Day. And it gives me an opportunity to kind of weigh in on some of these questions as to why I want to ask him and where I want to see, I want to see where Ryan Day, who is now one of the top tier voices in all of college football, stands on these issues. And we'll start this one a little personal to us. Quarterbacks. 2023, Lincoln Keenholz. 2024, Aaron Noland. And then Julian Sayin comes in kind of on top of him in the transfer portal. Air goes out. But Tavian St. Clair in 2025. Brady Edmonds in 2027. Then Luke Fahey in 2026. Now, before they got the commitment of Luke Fahey, it looked like Ohio State might not take a quarterback in 2026. They just didn't seem to have the perfect fit. Instead, it looked like they were gearing towards taking an additional quarterback in 2027 to pair with Brady Edmonds. And that didn't happen. Of course, they found Luke Fahey. He's the perfect guy. Luke Fahey in 26 it is. So now you got Luke Fahey in 26, Brady Edmonds in 27. But Ohio State still going after a quarterback in 2027, trying to get two. Teddy Gerard, for instance, just cut his list down to 5. Now, he's not coming to Ohio State. He's Rivals' number 2 ranked quarterback in the class of 2027. Not quite as big as Brady, not quite the cannon as Brady, but a little more athletic. Sensational quarterback, just awesome. Thought to be a Notre Dame lean, and usually when these guys start leaning to Notre Dame, they end up there, and I do think he will end up there. But my point is, Buckeyes not just looking for a decent prospect as a second quarterback. They're looking for another dude to pair with Brady, and that's different. That's unique and a big change. I'd love to know why, what the philosophy here is with Ryan Day. When Julian came in, he came in because he was available. It was just perfect timing. He's available. You can get him at Ohio State. It's someone who you valued a lot in the recruiting process. And it was difficult for Ryan Day to do that, to bring Julian Sayin in with Aaron Nolan already in the class. He's told us publicly how difficult that was for him, and I don't blame him. So he brings Julian in. Obviously, out goes Air, and that is generally what's going to happen every time you have 2 top dog quarterbacks in the same class. And now he's looking to do the same in 2027. And you could just say, well, if you're going to lose a guy to the transfer portal, let him work himself out, whatever. If you bring in 2 really good guys, the odds of you hitting on one are better. Okay, I agree. That's true. However, now when we're talking about these high-end quarterbacks, they're costing money now. They didn't cost a lot of money before. Now they're eating up your budget. So what is it about 2027 that is making that unique, that they're still going after a second quarterback? I got a list of other quarterbacks that they're in on. We can go over them next week, but I would love to know what the philosophy is behind that. I'd also like to talk to him about the transfer portal this offseason in the spring. He made it clear during spring practice 3 times that he was not happy with the interior of the defensive line, too deep, etc. And normally that is something in the past that we would have seen Ryan Day fix in the offseason. Why didn't he? Was it lack of options in the transfer portal? Was it a money issue? I think the Buckeyes took a real calculated risk here. They've got the same situation that they got on the recruiting trail in that transfer portal now. You had a guy in Murad Watson who is going to command on the market more money than Caden McDonald and Edric Houston are getting from Ohio State. And he isn't as good as them. Would have been the 3rd best defensive tackle, which leaves you with a couple of options. Either you pass on the player, which they did, you pay him what he wants and bring him in making more money than the guys ahead of him who've been putting in work and committed to you out of high school, or you bring him in, pay him what he needs, and you raise those guys, which now costs you a ton of money. So they elect to pass on the player. There is no ideal answer in this situation, and Murad Watson goes to Texas. But just so we're on the same page, this is the same situation that everybody who's like, we miss on a recruit, and everybody says, well, we can just go to the portal. All right, then you go to the portal, you're in this same financial conundrum. It's the same exact thing we talk about with freshmen. And the same people I hear all the time just shrug their shoulders and say, we can just get it from the portal. Well, they look at that guy and say, all right, well, he's not worth the money. That's too much money. At some point, you got to get the player. Either coming out of high school or in the portal, you got to get the player. The Buckeyes did not in this case. After Ryan Day talked publicly 3 times about it, I'm really curious as to how this turns out, because let's say it doesn't turn out great. Let's say that 2 deep gets run on all year. And you can go back to the spring where he brought it up 3 separate times, and he's going to be kicking himself in the butt that he didn't do anything on it. So a calculated risk. Curious to see how it turns out. Curious to see how Murad Watson plays at Texas. We'll see them game 1. Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia was going to come in and essentially, we were told, run the Ohio State defense. Jim Knowles' defense, not a whole lot of change. No need to change. Everything was really good last year. Obviously, a fantastic defense. I get the feeling that things are going great with Matt Patricia, even better than expected. Will the defense be a little more different than Coach Day initially anticipated? Now, Matt Patricia obviously has talked about a lot of different packages, and we know that he is kind of a whiz, can do anything he wants with the personnel that he's got. I originally thought that was going to be a pretty small percentage of the defense, and we were going to see something that looked a lot like it did last year. And I feel like the more he's gotten comfortable and the more everybody's gotten comfortable with Matt Patricia, you can see how there's more trust developing. There are less nerves about trying new things. There's more probably respect for his knowledge and what he can do. And then you got the issue of this defense not quite constructed personnel-wise like it was last year, not as strong in the middle, but you're strong at linebacker. And it just leads me to believe that it's going to be a little more different than we originally expected. I'd love to see Ryan Day hit on that as well. And we can get to the playoffs with them as well. So he brought up the AQ. He said that he is in favor of the AQ model. And the Big Ten, because they talk so little about this, unlike the SEC, we don't know specifically if they're after the 4-4-2-2-1 or the 4-4-2-2-1-3. But I'd like to ask Ryan Day, if it is the 14-team model, which is the 4-4-2-2-1, that's one at-large bid, automatic qualifiers. The one at-large bid goes to Notre Dame, which means the only way to get in the playoffs, if you're Ohio State, is through your conference record, which means winning or losing against Texas, game one, for instance, you're just playing for pride. Coach, how do you, in a system with just one at-large bid that probably goes to Notre Dame, still make those games like Ohio State and Texas meaningful? I'd love to ask him that. We don't need to imagine what it looks like when we have two teams playing in a big matchup game and it's just for pride. We've run this experiment. It's called the bull system. Eventually, one team starts sitting guys, then another does it. And before we know it, that's just the standard. And we are surprised when a star player or a starting quarterback plays in one of those games. I'm in favor of a 16-team AQ with 3 at-large bids. If he had 3 at-large bids, now when Ryan Day is playing Texas, he is playing hard because he wants to win that game, because he doesn't just have an opportunity to get in the playoffs through his conference. He can also make it with an at-large bid if he finishes 5th in the conference. Obviously, if you listen often, you know this is my argument on this. I've been making it since day one, but I think everybody needs to hear a respected coach explain it before they get it. This is from Dan Wetzel of ESPN, who also broke the Petitti news. The Big Ten wants the 4-4-2-2-1-3. What the Big Ten has proposed devalues non-cons. Now, while that is technically true, it does slightly devalue non-cons to a certain degree. What we're seeing right now is essentially the same as the 5-11. And what are we seeing right now when it comes to non-conference games? They're not getting played. They're getting canceled. Nebraska canceled Tennessee. USC is about to cancel Notre Dame. We could go on and on and on. Indiana just canceled Virginia last week. Ryan Day already told us that Georgia and Alabama, home and home, that are on the schedule may not make sense. And he was talking about in the 5-11. So if someone is sitting here listening to this and saying, that's smart, we don't want to play Georgia and Alabama, replace them with Kennesaw State, that's fine. I respect your opinion. You and I just see this thing totally differently out of what we want from college football. If you get your way, we're going to get 3 weeks of preseason games. And instead of Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Oklahoma, Clemson, LSU, we're going to get Indiana, Kennesaw State for 3 weeks straight after we just get done with the longest offseason in all of sport. I'm good on that. Give me the extra risk. Give me the extra big game. I want it. Now, you could say, we'll get that in the postseason. That's true. Buddy, we can have it all. The 4-4-2-2-1-3 encourages out-of-conference games, gives you a reason to win those games, gives you a clear goal in a bracket on how you get to the playoffs, removes a ton of the committee's job, and you get the play-in weekend, which you may or may not like. I've got a subtle problem with it, but all in all, I think it's the system that gives us a little bit of everything we love, and there's no huge drawback from it. So, love to hear Coach Day's thoughts on that. I'd also like to talk to him about the situation Ohio State is in that is both fortunate for stability and a great football team, which is having a great roster. Also, unfortunate when it comes to getting more talent. When we're talking about you've got talent, you got to retain. You got older talent. You got to stay under a salary cap. You need to pay those guys to retain them. And at the same time, if you're not bringing in as many top tier talented guys on the front end, then the team talent eventually begins to drop. How do you balance this more and more when the top tier freshman players are being offered big money by programs that don't have older talent to retain? So they can use more of their budget on younger guys coming in, a la what we've seen with USC this year, using almost all of their budget, wink, wink, nod, nod, on young guys because they don't care about their old guys because they suck. Now, people are pointing to 2024 Ohio State national championship. Proof of concept, Ohio State's strategy works. I don't think what happened in 2024 is all too relevant to the situation we find ourselves in now. I think the salary cap, I think the restructuring of NIL makes everything totally different. And when we look at the portal in 2024, you got incredibly lucky with Caleb Downs. You got lucky with Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins, if he would have hit the market, would have been astronomical price. We wouldn't have gotten him in this market. Wouldn't have happened. Caleb, probably, but Quinshon, he wanted to come to Ohio State. Totally different deal. And you're also working now, not with NIL dollars, but with your budget. Are you going to pay, when you got Travion Henderson, that much money for another running back at a premium cost? No, you're not. It's not going to happen. So this changed everything. But the main thing is the big money was spent on retaining that 2024 class. Well, sure, that's a great blueprint, but let's keep in mind that senior class was a 7 5-star, 14 top 100 player class. Ohio State won't come close to a class like this year. Not close. So if it was today's market back then, when those guys were freshmen, the fact of the matter is you wouldn't have brought in half of those top tier guys. You wouldn't have. Not the way you're recruiting right now. So what's the answer here? As we look around college football, we're seeing some programs that stand out with very public high dollar deals that don't seem like they are intending on playing by the rules. And I would love to ask Ryan Day if he feels that every team he's going up against for recruits are going by the same rules and format that he's going by, because it certainly doesn't seem like it to a lot of us. I would love to see. I mean, look, let's be honest. There's no way he thinks that, but I'd love to hear his answer about it. Many of the prospects Ohio State is used to going after are now becoming very wealthy freshmen. They're getting huge offers from somewhere else. And I think we've seen more of it this cycle than anywhere else. It's kind of becoming the norm for the top tier guys. In Ohio State's philosophy, we're going to weed these guys out. We don't want guys who have money as their number one priority. Now, let's keep in mind, just because a guy takes the biggest deal doesn't mean money was his number one priority. He could have two schools neck and neck, and money's just the determining factor. That happens all the time. But it's pretty clear in a lot of cases like this, Ohio State is not really being competitive. They were a little more competitive last year, the year before. The market's gone up. They've stayed the same. So if Ohio State cannot or is not willing to be competitive in that market, is it time to stop chasing those types of prospects, try to weed them out faster? Is that time maybe better spent by the coaching staff evaluating, traveling? I don't know. But it certainly seems like they've had a lot of misses this year that we all knew were going to be misses for months in advance because it was going to be an NIL guy. And sure enough, he ended up being an NIL guy. So I'd like to ask Ryan Day those questions. I want to get to Mark Pantoni. Mark Pantoni, not someone we get to hear from often. He doesn't talk much, and he did a show over the weekend with Tim May. Tim May, obviously a legendary beat reporter. I don't know who he's working with right now, but he has his own channel called the Tim May Channel. I'd encourage you to check it out. Subscribe to his channel. He's got about 1,000. I think he just started it. this video that I found only had about 1,000 views with Pantoni. So Pantoni goes on and talks to Tim May. I've got two interesting tidbits that came out of this. So the first one about the fiscal calendar. You got your $20.5 million for the year, right? But it's not just football, which means it's not set by the football calendar as to when the fiscal year starts and ends, which again, didn't even cross my mind. It starts on July 1st, 2025. It ends on June 30th, 2026. So what do you got to do in that time frame? Pantoni says you got to take care of the roster from June till December. Then you've got the December transfer portal. Then you've got the mid-year enrollees in January. Then you need money to retain guys on the back end. And this is a crazy amount of uncertainty trying to map this out. So, you're in contracts before you know what you're going to need out of the transfer portal or who's going to leave and how much money is going to come free. In addition to that, you want to spend your whole budget because you don't get to keep it for next year. So if you don't spend the 14 or 16 million, that's gone. You just missed out on spending all your money. He said Matt Patricia has been a huge help. Matt Patricia was doing this in New England with Belichick, and then he did it on his own in Detroit. So Patricia been adding a lot of value both on the defense and with the salary cap stuff. Now, the second thing Pantoni said that I think is of note, we talk about positional value all the time, and I think most of us agree that in the college game, your positional value is still always going to go 1, 2, 3 in whatever order, one quarterback and then offensive and defensive line. The quarterback and the offensive and defensive linemen, they're going to be the most expensive. Most cases, they're going to be the hardest to find. Those are large dudes. They're developmental positions for sure. We all know that. The physical maturity of an 18-year-old and a 22 or 23-year-old who's been in a college strength and conditioning program for 4 or 5 years, it's huge. In a lineman, it's less consequential when you're a corner or a wide receiver. So corners or wide receivers are going to contribute earlier than a lineman. So what we've got is the most expensive, rare bodies, the big offensive tackle, the big dog defensive tackle, the most rare and expensive. What is Ohio State's philosophy when it comes to paying them? Mark Pantoni enlightened us. He said, we want to build from the high school ranks, about 80% from high school. We want to be right on our evaluations and develop those guys. I don't want us to pay high school offensive linemen, defensive linemen, tight ends, which are known as developmental positions. Just look at the percentages of true freshmen who are coming in and making an immediate impact. So to pay them a large sum of money, knowing they're not going to come in and play year one, potentially not year two, those are risky. So again, philosophical questions. How much money are you willing to invest in these positions out of high school without being reckless, without creating potential issues in those current rooms where high school kids are walking in the door making more money than the guys who are already here? So those are the tough ones. Those are the questions and the conversations we had. Okay, so of course he's talking like you're paying a guy like a stud tackle, ton of money coming out of high school. We're at a place like at Ohio State, and he's going to be sitting on the bench year one. So it's burnt money year one, and that's what you're trying to avoid. Every big dollar contract you want out on the field right now. Defensive linemen, edge rushers, you can get away with paying those guys. They can contribute year one. Two of the best in the country last year, Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart, true freshmen. But it certainly seems like Mark Pantoni has a very difficult time shelling out that money for the big dogs. And that certainly takes Ohio State right out of the running for a lot of guys. And it makes their job even harder. But if that's the philosophy, it feels to me like you are wasting time on a lot of these guys that you can smell from a mile away are just going to be the monster NIL recruitment dudes. Now, speaking of spending this money, a big rumor going around that's so it started on a message board. I believe it was on the 11W message board where I saw this thing get floated around. So there's a guy and he was reacting to a chain of posts on another message board behind a paywall that I read. There was a few Ohio State beat writers on there, and this guy tried to summarize it, put it on the 11W board, and this was his summary was essentially taken all out of context, but he was claiming that Ryan Day and Ross Bjork were in a big argument over money. Ryan Day wants to spend more money. Ross Bjork is saying no, and the coaches aren't going to go for this forever. It's total nonsense. Ryan Day, not furious that the coaches aren't being able to break the rules, because that's what people are talking about here. They're talking about breaking the rules and spending NIL money that they're not allowed to spend. They can spend they can do whatever they want with the budget as far as the revenue share dollars. But there's no denying that even if you are a naturally glass half full Buckeye fan, positive all the time, you certainly weren't expecting after a national championship. The class that's currently being recruited, it's a little bit of a letdown. It's a little bit of a letdown, even though you like the players. It's a little bit of a letdown. Ohio State just won the national championship, and the streak of 6 consecutive top 5 classes is going to end. And that sucks. Not the year you'd have thought that ended. And it's not going to end by 1 spot. It's going to be closer to 10 than 5. And honestly, there's a chance it could end outside the top 10. And it's not a very, very distant chance. I mean, it could happen pretty easily. Just yesterday, Texas purchases the services of running back Derek Cooper, who the Buckeyes were in on for a while. Not a big deal. We didn't think we were getting him. But again, we don't think that until the end, the last couple of months. And then we know that, and we just kind of reserve ourselves to our fate. But there was one point when he was very much in the mix. And this just went on and on all cycle. Texas also signed Tyler Atkinson this week. They flipped the number 1 tackle from Georgia, 3 5-stars in 7 days. Last week, it felt like this was Georgia. The week before, Alabama. And the Bucks, not in play for really anybody right now, outside of Braylon Womack, and as usual, asking a 5-star to take considerably less money to come to Ohio State, with some teams that are desperate for him, like Auburn, who's extremely desperate, having a horrible class, where his sister goes, Florida as well, Texas A&M. Then you got offensive lineman Deron Parks, who will announce his decision Saturday. Of course, we'll be here for that one live. Florida State and Auburn, and on this one, a couple of desperate schools. So a lot of people understandably stressed out about it, mad at Ross Bjork. He's an easy target. Ohio State isn't spending, isn't landing more of these guys. Now, how Ohio State chooses to manage the revenue share that is allocated for football, that's not Ross's decision. That's on Pantoni and Day. They can allocate more for these freshmen if they want to. But again, this is not what people are talking about when they're saying Ross won't let him spend. They're talking about fake NIL deals that many assume Ohio State is getting beat with from other schools, fake NIL deals. And yeah, that was Ross and Ohio State legal's decision to follow this whole thing. They're going to follow it. And that's just the way it's going to be. I don't think it was Ross's decision on his own. I think Ohio State legal probably even had more to do with it and more say in how Ohio State was going to go about it than Ross. But I could be wrong. I just think that's just a massively powerful wing. And there's a lot at stake in the term of fines and things. It just seems to me like that would be structured where that's coming from legal. This is how we're going to handle this. I'm sure there were a lot of meetings, but I just don't know if Ross could look at Ohio State legal and be like, yeah, we're going to totally dismiss this and just roll the dice. I don't know. But Ross Bjork had an interview with Dom Taberi of, I don't even know where that guy works. He's an older fella, a nice older fella. And he interviewed Ross Bjork. And Ross Bjork reiterated that he believes Ohio State's taking the right approach. We just need to have patience. You're hearing all these wild stories that are people truly following the rules. You know, everybody put their hand up and said, give us rules because we want to be governed. We want enforcement. And the fact that we got started late with the College Sports Commission and the settlement happened later, it's a little bumpy now. So the biggest word right now is patience. And to me, You don't want to rush out and just make some bad decisions that could impact you later on. So I think patience is the key, while understanding we can be aggressive. We have revenue share dollars. We have third-party NIL. We have engagement opportunities that most places don't have because we set in this great city. So we want to be aggressive, but smart, and patience, to me, is going to pay off. So he says we could be aggressive because we have revenue sharing dollars and NIL engagement opportunities. We can be aggressive. We can be, or we are be, because we ought to be as aggressive as we're allowed to be. So I'm not quite sure what he's saying here. Now, I get not breaking the rules. That's cool. But man, we're not privy to the numbers. We don't know if they're spending all of that money, but they better be. They sure better be. But this is just such a weird period, man. It's such a weird transition period into this thing that we don't even know if it's going to stick. I'll tell you what I would hate the most, though. As much as I don't like, how much I love recruiting, as much as I hate all the recruiting misses, when I look at this team, the way it's structured, when I look at the 2026 team, that is throw a dart at 26. That is a target year, a national championship caliber year, like we looked at 2024. It's 26. And you best not get done with 25, have some holes in the team, and go to that transfer portal in December, and you don't got money to plug those holes for 2026. You got to have that money. Got to. So I can understand where that might be a stressful situation, trying to make sure that that money's still there. But you also have, from now to then, Pantoni also talked about Learfield out working with all the businesses right now. They have been. They're going to drum up, like we talked about, going to get as many open-ended deals ready as they can, as many businesses involved as they can. And they've got 6 months from now till the transfer portal. I wish we could see how much they can get together from businesses, because I just think it's going to be a great thing for Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to do great at this, providing everybody follows the rules at some point. We shall see. But I understand the logic. I wish there was a follow-up question that would have gotten asked with Bjork, but it was a brief interview. Again, Dom Tiberi, Tiberi, if you want to go check that out. Just type that in. I'm sure you can find him. But people certainly want Ohio State to be a little more aggressive than they have been with freshmen. I get it. I think that if Ohio State had a little more time, like maybe 6 months ahead of time before this freshman class, we could have seen them get some more NIL deals to those guys. But when it's Ryan Day, I am positive that Ryan Day is more frustrated than any one of us. We see his results in recruiting. We know how much he cares about recruiting. I just honestly have this faith that no matter what scenario happens this cycle, this class is number 9 and moving backwards, that Ryan Day and Ross Bjork are not going to go into next year accepting this again. But if they do, heads are going to roll, man. It's just not going to fly. It's not going to fly. However, I think Ryan Day agrees with Ross Bjork that this is the proper way to go year one. I really do. It just feels like that to me. And I'll say it again, there's a lot of these players Ohio State missed on that I don't think had anything to do with cap room or not being able to do fake NIL. When we look at Luke Waffle, for instance, Ohio State was never matching that second offer by USC. That wasn't happening last year when there was no cap. The same with Carter Meadows for $1 million. Never paying Deuce Gerald's $1 million. Never paying Danny Odom, who got a sweet deal from Nebraska. Never matching that. They were never paying Savion Hyder $1 million. They were never paying Derek Cooper $700,000. That's a philosophy thing. That has nothing to do with the settlement, nothing to do with fake NIL or real NIL or revenue share. Two separate issues. They weren't paying those guys that kind of money. It wasn't happening. They could have gotten closer, but they weren't going to be the leader. And I think Bjork is an easy target for people with this because he's, number one, new, number two, from the SEC. Number 3, he didn't win us anything yet. And he's an easy target. So all I care about at this point is, does this get rectified by next year? Does it get rectified by next year? So, I mean, we can all look at this class in 2026 and say, look, I really like these players, and we can. But, this is the number 1 program in college football, number 1 program in the country. It should never be outside the top 10 at anything. And that's just what it is. Especially when we look at the programs who are ahead of Ohio State. There's a lot of them that I don't think are going afoul of the rules. I don't think Notre Dame's screwing around at all. Notre Dame's got the 3rd class. I don't think they're putzing about. I think they're following the rules. I think Georgia, for the most part, is following the rules, and they're smashing it. Really, I think the only ones that are totally rogue at this point, USC, Texas A&M, and who else is in that top 10 that's gone rogue? I don't know. I think that's about it. So anyway, that's what I got with that, guys. Let me get to a couple of your chats here. We've got our man, Adam Bachtel. Thank you so much, Adam. Adam with the $4.99. Adam says, hey, Juck, spill the beans on where you got that polo. Looking good. Wow. How about this polo, man? Now, I ordered it. It's a little too big. So I'll tell you what I did. There was 2 versions of it. I got the double X on. I'm always between a double and a single X. And I never usually guess right. It's different in every line of clothing. So I got the double a little too loose. So I ordered, just before we started the show, actually, the single X in the other style. And that's what I did. So where did I get it? Fanatics. It's a Nike off of Fanatics. Yeah, that's where I got it. Basically anything with the leaf, I'll buy. I just love the leaf. Always have. But yeah, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Oh, you can't even see the whole thing. It's got this helmet stripe on it too. The helmet stripe horizontally, which I love. So yeah, buddy. I love it. Really comfortable. Adam with another $1.99, keeping me in business here. Saying stats in 2025, over or under McCord stats in 2023, which, as much as we knock McCord, they weren't bad. They weren't great. They weren't bad. But that said, I'm a pretty big saying guy, my bro. I am going with over on that one for sure. Over. So, all right, guys. I've got a couple more segments. I think I could save until tomorrow because I'm already at 48 minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk to you guys in the chat. We'll get to these ones tomorrow or on our next show. We're either going to go Wednesday night or Thursday night. We'll go live again. In the meantime, I will. Oh, Em, did you think this is a vest? Oh yeah, it's a shirt. I can see how you thought that. Looks like I got a white vest on a red shirt. Yeah, let's all like the show. Says the fella. Look at his avatar. His avatar is me with the pair of glasses. That's fantastic. I love it. Here we go. We got a question for Ryan Day from Woody's. Would love to ask Day what the differences will be going from his mentor as OC to his mentee. That's a great question. So he goes from Chip Kelly, the guy who gave him his start, gave him all of his jobs until he got on his own 2 feet. And now it's him turning around. Brian Hartline finally going to the box. It's time, man. It's time for Brian Hartline. Chris, saying throws a really pretty ball, right? You bet your bottom dollar. Hey, the shirt's popular. Thanks, bro. Oh, yeah, this is getting a little ridiculous, Don. It really is. Rod says, I love how people think Saiyan is only 5'8". I've actually got a picture loaded up
to show you guys just of saying the other day. And, you know, you can't tell anything about height, but he's certainly getting a little thicker. You know what I mean? Doesn't look frail. I mean, doesn't look super lean right there. But it doesn't look frail. That's for sure. So they're just encouraging him to beef up. That's good. Beef up, young man. Beef up. But yes, absolutely a beautiful ball. Does Julian Sand throw. By the way, check out this picture of Faber Akey, guys. Holy schmoly. That's a 16-year-old right there. Straight from Cameroon. My goodness. Imagine this dude when he's 20. That's our running back right there in the class of 2026. Local running back. You stick with Ohio kids. Good for Faber, man. Been working it hard. E says, money's changing everything. I believe Stroud should have won the Heisman, but he didn't. You know why? He definitely was better and had better stats, but they wanted Caleb Williams so bad. Yeah, Caleb was really exciting, and some of the plays Caleb made really just people got infatuated with some of those plays, which, yeah, he made some great off-script plays. So I don't really follow the NFL, guys. Is he doing good in the NFL? You know what I think we'll do is, so we're going to see, yeah, we'll probably have to come on live tomorrow to talk about what our guys said. So I guess maybe we'll come on tomorrow as well. We got a Penn Stater. Penn State says James Franklin talks Wednesday, season around the corner. Nevada first up. Is it a bot, Richie? A Penn State bot? I always had this thing like people talk about. So Penn State is one of the fan bases that on social media I don't ever see. Like Penn State fans exist. I know they do. Their numbers are enormous, but I never see them anywhere. Richie does not trust Bjork. There's definitely something about Bjork that, yeah, he's got that. He's got that, like, you know, if something ever came out about Bjork and you know, something unsavory kind of scandal, yeah, you'd believe it. There you go. Snake in the grass, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. He's just a little salesman-y. You know what I mean? He's a little too crisp and polished. And it's just, there's a little bit of phony about him. There we go. Chris says he acts like a salesman. Yeah. Penn State Sports Talk says he heard Cincinnati has better facilities than Ohio State. Bro, Cincinnati has better facilities than Penn State as well. I'm sorry to tell you. They're awesome. They just built them and they're amazing. But yes, we need Ohio State, new facilities at Ohio State. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. We need a new renovation to the stadium like you guys are doing at Penn State. I got to tell you guys on tomorrow's show about what they did at Florida State. Did a big reno on Florida State, and it took them from 79,000 seats to 67,000 seats. And in this new reno, they did a lot of great stuff, added some seat back areas, added some more boxes, and it's just like, that's cool. They'll make up that money, but you lose that seating capacity. I would hate to see Ohio State go under 100,000. I mean, you're pretty close right there. I don't know if that means anything to anybody else, but I really like that. I feel like that's something. But there's only like 7 in the country. That's something I really love. Richie asks, are we concerned about Womack, Juck? I am. I am too. I'm not out on it, but yeah, I'm concerned. Chase says, Jim Knowles is nothing without Ohio State athletes. He's a horrible recruiter. Well, that's for damn sure, but he's got some really good Penn State athletes as well. Oh, yeah. Texas Tech's facilities, #1 in the country. Is that amazing or what? Texas Tech. I took a digital YouTube tour. You guys should do it. It's insane. And they're paying like a 30% premium extra to get guys to go there because Lubbock is not a great place to live and it's off the beaten path. I don't know if it's not a great place to live. It's just off the beaten path. And, but boy, man, get yourself to Lubbock, play for them Red Raiders. I would like to live in that facility. That was amazing. Am I way behind you guys? Boy, I am. Yeah, I'm with Emily. I don't want to lose any seating. Juck, are you going to be heading to training camp next week? Brother, it looks like it. It looks like it. Am I going to see you there? I think I'm going to be there all week. I think. I will know for sure here. I'm hoping pretty soon. I got something cooking, bro. I got something cooking. I hope to tell everybody about it real soon. So, all right, my friends. I appreciate you so much for joining me on a Monday. It's been a fantastic show, and I could think of no better way to spend my Monday evening than with you fine Buckeyes and a Penn Stater. Penn Stater this evening. How exciting. Appreciate you all so much. So I guess what we'll do then is probably come on live tomorrow because we do have so much action. So we'll want to get into what happens at Big Ten Media Days tomorrow. I'm definitely going to want to recap this. So I assume that we will, we'll do it again at 7:30 tomorrow. Let's just plan on that. And then if something changes, I'll let you guys know, but let's just go ahead and plan on that. 7:30 tomorrow. We will reconvene and talk about what happened at Big Ten Media Days and who had the stones to call out Tony Petitti and get in his business. Can't wait. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out.